Hey everyone, this is Louis and welcome to the Ultimate Brand Bible, your ultimate space for free advice, tips, tricks, hacks, how-to guides, templates, and resources on branding to help you get your brand to the next level. And you can start the process for your brand today by hitting the subscribe button and the little bell notification to make sure you don't miss any of the great stuff we put out on a regular basis. So without further ado, let's get branding. So today's video is another one in our series on understanding branding basics, and we'll be looking at 20 key brand elements. Now, the purpose of this video is just to give you a brief overview or introduction, if you're new to this, to these individual concepts and all the terminology involved. And we'll have separate videos on this channel where we go into much more depth in each of these individual elements. So let's get started. The first one we'll be dealing with is brand name. Now, a brand name is the unique, let me just cue this one up. Your brand name is the unique name of your brand that identifies you in the market and differentiates you from other brands. Now, your brand name is not to be confused with your trade name, because a lot of times these could be different. Your trade name is the name of your company, who's essentially the owner of the brands. For example, Nike is the brand of shoes, but it's produced by a company with a trade name, Nike Incorporated or Nike Inc. Sometimes it could be a completely different name, the trade name, to the actual brand names. But then again, you have brands or companies like Apple, and they produce different brands. So iPad, although it's one of their products, they've established iPad, the iPhone, etc. as separate kind of brands. So there's a little bit of nuance to this. Now, brand name is an important part of your business, and you absolutely need to choose it very wisely. Now, the second one we're dealing with here is brand identity, and your brand identity can be widely varied concept in itself. But for the purpose of this, we'll just describe it as something that covers anything that makes your brand identifiable to your audience. Now, your visual identity, this is not to be confused with your visual identity. A lot of people think your brand identity is just a logo, and it's not, because the visual identity is just one part of your bigger brand identity. Your visual identity is stuff like your color palette, logo, your logo icon, your signature design element. But other things like your slogan and tagline or unique soundbite also fall under this identity. For example, you look at the Intel, the Chime soundbite, the Nike's swoosh, and the Just Do It slogan, even the red background, and the specific font that Coca-Cola uses. These are all individually identifiable characteristics of the brand's identity. Even if you see something else written in that Coca-Cola font, you would immediately think Coca-Cola. That's that identifiable. Now, brand identity, definitely subscribe to this channel and hit the bell notification so you can stay up to date with all the stuff we release. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff on brand identity. I have an entire series. If you're watching this video after the fact, then it should already be there. You can just go to the playlists and you should find it there. Basically a complete and comprehensive guide on how you can create a brand identity. And it'll be divided into many different sections, and we'll go as deep as we possibly can into this subject. I'll also put in a link in the description below where you can head over to my to the blog ultimatebrandbible.com, where you can actually get a free ebook on how you can create your brand identity. Well, you're gonna have to sign up for the newsletter in order to get that, but that's up to you. So moving on, brand strategy. So brand strategy is a long-term plan of how you will develop your brand to achieve certain set of goals and ambitions. Now, your brand strategy, although it can be short, will be very comprehensive and give you a very clear idea of what you want your brand to become in the long run. And the next one, brand positioning. There should be a card popping up somewhere here. I do have another video that goes into depth on brand positioning and how you can write your brand positioning statement, so definitely check that out. For at the time of recording this, I do have a few that's already available. The other ones, other concepts that we haven't gone into depth in separate videos, we won't be linking from here, but I will put them in the links in the description below. You can also then just go to the playlist section under Understanding Branding Basics, and as I release these videos, it'll all come under that. So if you're watching this after the fact, once again, you can just head over there and catch all of that stuff in depth there. Now, brand positioning is your brand positioning is how you position yourself in the market, differentiating yourself from your competitors. Now, this is done through a brand positioning statement, wherein you identify your exact target audience, your competition, and the unique space that you will occupy in a given market. That's basically how you position yourself. Now, brand image or brand perception. Once again, I have a video on this, which the card will pop up at some point, and a link in the description. Your brand image is the image or perception that your customers or audience have about your brand. Now, this also includes how the general public sees your brand, whether they interact with your brand or not. The next one we get here is brand personality. So brand personality, let me just cue that up again. Brand personality is how you can characterize your brand in terms of human characteristics and personality traits. Now, this is quite an interesting one because I think this is a fairly recent phenomenon, or I won't say recent, but it became much more, popular over the last few years compared to in the past. And I think brands became much more personal. It's not that very corporate, kind of cold, personality-less, very corporate stuff that we saw around in the 80s. People want to connect much more than before. It's actually quite funny. It seems to me like personal brands became more and more corporate as they kind of branded themselves more, and companies who branded themselves too much, they are branding themselves in a way that it looks like they're not that branded. They're becoming more like people. They're making the branding smaller, more personality, more all of that, becoming more like people, and people become more like corporations. So that's just quite interesting. So brand personality actually consists of 5 broad dimensions, namely sincerity, excitement, competence, sophistication, and ruggedness. Those are the 5 personality traits. And this one here is brand voice. Your brand voice refers to the way in which you convey your brand personality and connect with your audience or customers. Now, your tone of voice is really important for helping to create consistency in your brand identity and how you communicate with your audience. Now, brand equity. So brand equity is the value of your brand as determined by consumers' perception and experience of your brand. Now, making your products more unique, memorable, and of superior quality are great examples of how you can increase your brand equity. Now we come to brand experience, which is also something that's quite interesting, and I'll definitely do a video on that soon. I have an extensive blog post on it, and it's really interesting. I think this is the one thing that's going to become much more used marketing technique in the future. So brand experience refers to how your customers or audience experiences your brand. Now, this is actually something that you can control. You can create situations in which you can immerse your audience in your brand experience. Now, so experiential marketing, that's what it's called. This is a marketing technique through which you can create a holistic set of conditions through which your customers can experience your brand to influence their perception. Events, product launches, etc., all examples of this. And then here we get to brand communication. Brand communication is the combination of all your activities related to communicating, persuading, influencing, informing, educating your customers or audience about your products, services, or just your brand in general. So it's essentially all the communication that goes out from your company or your brand to your audience. Brand differentiation. Brand differentiation refers to how you are differentiated from your competitors in the market. Things to think about here. What are the key factors that make your brand different? Maybe you're the fun lawyer in a market of very serious ones. Maybe you're the most knowledgeable, the cheapest, the easiest to work with. Whatever can differentiate you from your competitors. Now, identifying or purposely creating your brand differentiation is an integral part of crafting your brand's positioning statement. And this will help you guide your marketing efforts to highlight your differentiation factors to your potential customers. This is also covered in, not too much in depth, but it's all covered in the brand positioning statement of the importance of finding that unique space that you can occupy in the market to make you stand out. Now, brand extension. Brand extension is when you use your well-established brand image to market a new product or service by using the same brand name. Now, a good example of this is a company like Dettol. So they have a lot of spin-off products. They started off with, Dettol, which is a standard cleaning product, and then from there, it just, they went into hand soap and hand sanitizer and other soap, and so it's essentially just extending your product range and leveraging your brand. Now we have here brand recall. So brand recall refers to the recall value that your brand has among your customers or audience. So when a potential customer is presented with a specific problem or need, they will recall a brand. The moment something breaks in the house, or you have, you need something. You this problem arises. You need something. Most likely, you need to go to the shop and get some kind of a product, or you need some kind of a service in order to solve that problem, and then you will instantly recall a brand or few brands that could solve that problem in that situation. Now, where you fit into that picture for people when they need to recall brands, that's essentially your brand recall value. Brand values. So brand values are the core of who you are as a business. These are your values that you believe in and that you've built your brand on. Now, brand promise. So your brand promise is a statement that tells your customers or audience exactly what they can expect when they interact with your brand, product, or services. Now, that sounds all good, but it's up to you to constantly deliver on that promise. If you constantly deliver that experience that you're promising to your customers, then your brand promise can convert into much stronger brand value. And then the flip side is also true. If you do not deliver on your brand promise, it will severely impact your brand in a negative way. Now, the next one here we have is brand recognition. So brand recognition refers to how well your brand can be recognized by your customers or audience when they come across your brand. Sorry, there we go. Now, this is not to be confused by brand recall. So brand recognition is essentially when they interact with your brand. So if you walk in the supermarket, or you walk in a mall and you walk past the shop and you see the signage, then brand recognition kicks in. How well do you recognize the brand that you're seeing? Where brand recall is more of when faced with the situation, you need to then recall a brand. So there's a distinction here. Nonetheless, you can increase your brand recognition by creating awareness campaigns. Experiential marketing campaigns is a very good way of doing this. To expose your brand to more people and increase the likelihood of them remembering you the next time they come in contact with you. So, I mean, it's absolutely true. The more you put your brand out there, the more people see it, the more they interact with it, the better they will recognize it. And then that'll also increase your brand recall value. So the one kind of leads to the other. Now you have brand loyalty, which is absolutely key to a brand success. Brand loyalty refers to the loyalty that your customers or audience have towards your brand. Now it takes a long time to build up, but can be extremely powerful. I mean, you can just imagine a brand like Tesla. I mean, their fans are just, or their followers are just absolutely fanatical. And the same with Apple versus Samsung. And we've all seen the scenes when they release new Apple products around the world. You know how a lot of their customers literally sleep outside of the shop for days, waiting for the shop to open on that specific day that the new iPhone will be released or something like that, which is just absolutely crazy. But it just shows you how much brand loyalty can help. Now, brand architecture. Once again, there should be a card popping up somewhere here. If not, then it should be in the link in the description. I have a video going into a lot more depth on brand architecture, what it is, how it works, the different models, advantages, disadvantages of each, and some examples. Now, brand architecture is a system through which brands are organized in a specific company and to show how they all fit together under one umbrella. Four main types of brand architecture models, which is the branded house of brands, sub-brands, and endorsed brands. The fifth one I sometimes include is the hybrid brand model, which is if it's just all over the place. It doesn't really fit into any of those, then you just mix and match as you go along. But be sure to check that out. And then we get to brand value. Now, brand value refers to the financial value that your brand has. Now, this can sometimes be tricky because the value of a brand is much more than the value of a company. If you think about it, like the Nike brand is worth so much more than the actual financial valuation of the company at a specific time. And not talking about maybe, like the stock market, the prices there, the IPOs. But if you think about, the company itself, how much is the company worth? You look at the assets the company have and, the factories and all of these things, and you add it up and it comes to X. But then you think about, you have two brands that have exactly the same financial value in terms of physical assets and stuff like that. But the one is, Bob's Shoes and the other one is Nike. Nike, the brand value is going to be worth a tremendous amount more than the other company coming along. And then the last one we'll be looking at here is brand awareness. Now, brand awareness is the process of creating awareness around your brand for people to interact or come in contact with your brand, and then to introduce them to your products or services. Now, there are many ways of creating brand awareness, and all of which you can learn right here on this channel. So once again, be sure to subscribe with a little bell notification so you can be notified when we release new content, which is extremely regularly. And if you found this video helpful, be sure to like. If there's anything you want to add or anything you want to know, you can always put it in the comments below. Till next time.